Hey, have you ever wondered why some people, even when handed golden opportunities, just fizzle out into mediocrity? Why do they get stuck in their own mess, then drag everyone around them down? It's not fate, it's stupidity. And no, I'm not talking about IQ or degrees. I'm talking about something far more lethal: stupidity in their mindset, in how they face reality. Machiavelli, a name many fear, was probably the greatest teacher of human nature there ever was. He observed human behavior with a chilling clarity, dissecting the true nature of power and the raw, often ugly, truth about how people operate when left to their own devices. He made it crystal clear the stupid person isn't someone who doesn't know, but someone who refuses to see, refuses to understand, and most importantly, refuses to change. They're the ones who shackle themselves to illusions, to outdated rules. And then they complain about a harsh world. They build these mental prisons for themselves, decorated with flimsy excuses and self-serving narratives, never daring to peek outside. This world is harsh, it always has been. It's a relentless arena where the sharp survive and the complacent perish. And if you don't want to become prey, you've got to understand what a stupid person looks like. Not to judge them from a high horse, but to protect yourself, to spot the traps they set for themselves, and often for you, and to make damn sure you don't become one of them. Ignorance in this game isn't bliss, it's a liability. This video on dark psychology is gonna strip bare 6 undeniable signs of a stupid person, in the true spirit of Machiavelli. These are signs you might see out there in your boss, your colleagues, your friends, or even your family. Or worse, and this is the really uncomfortable part, you might see these signs in yourself. This isn't a comfortable conversation, but sometimes comfort is the enemy of progress. This is a wake-up call, a resounding bell to shake you from your slumber. It's time to rip off the Band-Aid to face the uncomfortable truths that most people run from. Do you have the guts to face the truth? Because if you don't, someone else will use it against you. If this hook hit you hard, if you're ready to dive into the uncomfortable truths of power and human nature, then hit that like button right now. Don't forget to subscribe to the Dark Psychology channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more brutally honest lessons like this. We're about to unveil insights most people are too afraid to confront. Trust me, what you're about to hear will change how you view almost everyone around you. Machiavelli taught that human nature is complex, often contradictory, and inherently self-serving. And the most stupid person is the one who's scared stiff of facing the truth. No matter how painful or raw it gets, they just can't accept that this world isn't always fair, that not everyone's inherently good or has your best interests at heart, and that sometimes what you trust most can be the very knife in your back. This isn't cynicism, it's pragmatism born from centuries of observation. Think about it. How many times have you seen someone, or even yourself, clinging desperately to some outdated belief? Even when the evidence is staring them right in the face, they refuse to change because it's just too painful, too tough to admit they were wrong, or that the world they believed in isn't as rosy as they imagined. They prefer the comfort of a pretty lie to the sting of a harsh truth. This isn't just about being mistaken. It's an active, almost willful refusal to process reality. It's a mental block built on fear and ego. I once saw a business owner, an old buddy of mine, who constantly preached about loyalty and brotherhood in his company. He truly believed that by just treating his employees well, they'd bust their butts for him, no matter how the market changed. He flat out ignored loss reports, warnings from his consultants, and the fact that his competitors were embracing digital transformation like crazy. He stubbornly insisted, "A man's gotta have virtue and money ain't everything." He saw any suggestion to cut costs or automate processes as a betrayal of his family. Sounds noble, right? Like something out of a feel-good movie. But that was stupidity in disguise. He couldn't see that loyalty dissipates when livelihoods are threatened, and virtue can't pay employee salaries when the company goes belly up. Nobody cares about your good intentions when their kids are hungry. Ultimately, his company imploded. Employees scattered looking for new jobs. And guess what? Nobody stayed to light a candle for his brotherhood. No one stays loyal to a sinking ship. He learned that the hard way, leaving behind a trail of broken promises and ruined lives. all because he couldn't face the cold, hard economic truth. Another time, I dealt with a colleague who refused to acknowledge that his project was failing. Data showed declining user engagement, team morale was plummeting, but he kept presenting rosy forecasts and blaming external factors. He'd spend hours in meetings trying to twist facts, rather than accepting the project was fundamentally flawed. His fear of admitting failure, of confronting the harsh reality of his own misjudgment, led to months of wasted resources and ultimately a much bigger, more public failure than if he'd just faced the music early on. This isn't about being optimistic. It's about being deluded. That's a hard-earned lesson. The stupid person isn't someone who lacks information, but someone who has information, but flat out refuses to process it. They live in a bubble of false kindness, of cliché moral rules that reality just doesn't play by. They build elaborate mental constructs to avoid the pain of truth, and those constructs invariably crumble, taking them down with it. Machiavelli said, "A person who dares to give up what he has to gain what he wants is a wise person." What about the stupid person? They'd rather die cozy in their illusion than survive in the cold. Hard reality. They prefer the comfort of stagnation over the discomfort of growth. They choose blissful ignorance over painful enlightenment. They think if they close their eyes, the monster will disappear. But nope, the monster's just waiting for you to turn your back. And when you finally open your eyes, it'll be too late. The monster won't just be gone, it'll be feasting. And here's the terrifying part. If you don't dare to face the harsh truth about human nature, about how this world really operates, you'll forever be a pawn in someone else's game. You'll be exploited, manipulated, and ultimately tossed aside like yesterday's trash. You'll be playing by rules that don't exist in the real world, against players who know exactly how brutal the game truly is. Truth, no matter how raw, is always the only path to power. The stupid person runs from it, preferring the comfortable lie. What about you? Are you brave enough to stare reality in the face? Machiavelli once said, "Men are easily deceived by appearances and the outcome." The second sign of a stupid person is their incredibly naive gullibility when it comes to sweet, talk to smiling faces without ever digging deeper into what's real, into the actual actions. They're mesmerized by the show, completely missing the puppet strings behind the scenes. They're folks who live in a world where empty promises carry more weight than signed contracts, where a polite smile is proof of sincerity. They forget that in the power game, the most dangerous enemy often wears the cloak of friendliness. They are the wolf in sheep's clothing, and the stupid person invites them right into the flock. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature's darker side. I recall the story of a friend super talented but way too naive. He was promised by a reputable partner that his project would hit new heights as long as he gave up complete control. This partner constantly spouted sugary words about shared vision, about a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He spoke of shared glory, shared wealth, shared future, all while meticulously planning how to snatch everything. My friend bought it hook, line, and sinker. He didn't thoroughly check the contract, didn't ask about the partner's history, didn't bother to investigate the bad rumors surrounding the guy, rumors that, had he bothered, would have painted a very different picture. He only saw the sharp suit, the convincing way of talking, and the promises of a bright future. His emotional desire for success blinded him to the glaring red flags. The result: a few months later, the project was gutted, the technology stolen. And my friend lost everything, plus got saddled with a ton of debt. The con artist walked away scot-free, probably already finding new victims. Ready to spin the same web of charming lies, my friend learned too late that words are cheap and intentions are often hidden. Another classic example: people who fall for pyramid schemes or get-rich-quick scams. They see the flashy cars, the successful mentors. Hear the grandiose promises of passive income and early retirement. They ignore the complex terms, the unsustainable business models, the lack of real products, and the blatant unlikelihood of such easy money. They invest their life savings, convince their friends and family to join, all because they were sold a dream by someone with a convincing smile and a slick presentation. Their desire for a shortcut, coupled with their inability to look past the superficial, makes them perfect targets. What's the lesson here? Never judge a book by its cover. Never judge a person by their words alone. Machiavelli wants us to see through the facade, to look at the true nature of people and situations. The wise person knows that words are just hot air, actions are the proof. Results are the truth. They judge people not by what they say they'll do, but by what they've actually done, and what they are currently doing behind the scenes. The stupid person is the opposite. They're mesmerized by performances, by glitz, by empty praise. They easily give away their trust, their assets, their very future, just for a promise without any real backing. They mistake politeness for integrity, flattery for admiration, and a smooth talker for a genuine ally. In a world full of people who want to screw you over, gullibility is a disease. It messes with your judgment, turning you into a lamb among wolves. It strips you of your defenses, making you vulnerable to every predator looking for an easy meal. Be wary of sweet talk. Always ask yourself, what do they gain from this? Don't just accept what's presented. Scrutinize it. Never hesitate to check things out, verify, and ask tough questions. The stupid person fears being seen as suspicious fears offending someone. The wise person is always vigilant, always asking the uncomfortable questions, because they understand that a moment of discomfort now can prevent a lifetime of regret later. The third sign, and maybe one of the most annoying, is how the stupid person deals with failure. They never take responsibility. Instead, they always find something or someone to blame. Fate society, the economy colleagues, the boss, or even the weather, anything but themselves. This deflection is a core mechanism of their self-preservation, a desperate attempt to protect a fragile ego. Machiavelli understood this psychology perfectly. A weak ruler will always find excuses for their screw-ups. Instead of owning their mistakes and fixing them, they'll point to bad luck, treacherous subordinates, or a lack of resources, never acknowledging their own flawed leadership or poor judgment. This is the essence of weakness and cowardice. True strength isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about owning them and learning from them. Have you ever met someone like that? Always whining. It's just my luck. The market's tough. That guy played dirty. Dauphonons. Or, I didn't get the support I needed. They never look at their own bad decisions, their lack of effort, or their lack of foresight. They are trapped in a victim mentality, constantly blaming external forces while remaining blind to their own internal shortcomings. It's exhausting to be around, and it guarantees they'll never truly grow. I have an acquaintance who always dreamed of making it big. He started businesses repeatedly, but failed every single time. After each collapse, he'd go on and on about unfair competitors, customers who just didn't get it, or not having enough capital. He'd lament about how the system is rigged against him, how people just don't appreciate quality anymore. He never admitted that his product was outdated, his business plan was weak, or that he lacked leadership skills and disciplined execution. He clung to the narrative that he was a genius misunderstood by a cruel world. What was the consequence? He kept repeating the same damn mistakes. Because he never acknowledged the real cause of the problem, himself, he never learned a thing from failure. He stayed trapped in that vicious cycle of self-pity and blame, forever chasing the next big idea that would inevitably crash and burn for the same reasons. He never built anything lasting because he was always too busy pointing fingers. Consider the person who constantly complains about their job but never looks for a new one or develops new skills. They blame the company culture, their boss, the low pay, the long hours. But when asked what they're doing to change it, they have no answer or offer up excuses. I don't have time. It's too hard to find another job. I'm not qualified. They externalize responsibility for their own stagnation. They'd rather suffer and blame than act and potentially fail again, proving their self-fulfilling prophecy of victimhood. Machiavelli said, "Men act in the way they think is best for them." The blamer thinks that dodging responsibility will protect their ego. keeping them from facing the truth that they messed up. But it's exactly that avoidance that's the biggest enemy of growth. It creates a psychological barrier to learning and adaptation. You can't fix what you refuse to acknowledge. True strength comes from daring to face your own mistakes. Admitting "I was wrong" isn't a sign of weakness. It's guts. It's the hallmark of a leader, a survivor, a person who truly wants to improve. It allows you to learn, adjust, and get stronger. The stupid person sees it as failure, a stain, a blow to their pride. The wise person sees it as a valuable lesson, a stepping stone to future success. If you don't take responsibility for your own life, who the hell will do it for you? Nobody. And you'll forever be a puppet controlled by those external factors you always blame. You'll be at the mercy of circumstances, not the master of your destiny. This world is constantly in motion, always. It's a river, not a stagnant pond. But the stupid person has this deep-seated fear of change. They cling to what's old, to these fake comfort zones, even when those things are rotting and dragging them down. They'd rather sink slowly with a familiar ship than jump into the unknown waters of opportunity. Machiavelli saw this happen countless times throughout history. Rulers failed not because they lacked potential, but because they didn't dare to adapt, didn't dare to innovate when the times demanded it. They were scared of losing what they had, so they didn't dare to reach for something better. They were slaves to tradition, blind to evolution. A general who clings to old tactics against a new, agile enemy is doomed. A king who won't reform his collapsing kingdom will be overthrown. Do you see businesses slowly dying because they refuse to adopt new tech? Refuse to change how they approach customers? Think of Blockbuster clinging to physical stores, while Netflix embraced streaming, or Kodak refusing to see the digital camera revolution coming. Or people who just cling to a job that's no longer a good fit, a toxic relationship, an outdated skill set, just because they're afraid to step out of their comfort zone. Their fear of the unknown paralyzes them, trapping them in a slow, agonizing decline. I have an uncle who was once a really skilled craftsman. He made these incredibly intricate products but was super stubborn. When the market shifted to mass production, cheaper prices, and customers started leaning towards convenience, my uncle still insisted on making everything by hand, using traditional methods that were hundreds of centuries old. He refused to learn new technologies, refused to change his designs, refused to market online. He scorned e-commerce as impersonal and lacking soul. He always said the old ways are the best. What has tradition doesn't need to change. He equated consistency with quality, failing to see that the market had moved on. In the end, my uncle's shop went bankrupt. All he had left were regrets and complaints about a world that had changed too fast, a world he actively resisted. He became a relic, not a master. Consider the person whose entire identity is tied to their youth or a past achievement. They refuse to adapt to new social norms, new technologies, new ways of thinking. They complain about kids these days and how things used to be. They become isolated, irrelevant, and bitter. They're stuck in a time capsule while the world outside races forward. Their fear of becoming obsolete makes them obsolete. Change is the law of survival. The stupid person sees it as a threat, a destabilizing force to be resisted at all costs. The wise person sees it as an opportunity, a constant flow to be navigated and harnessed. They get that if you don't move forward, you'll be left behind. If you don't change, you'll be eliminated. Stagnation is a death sentence in the long run. The fear of change not only makes you stagnant, but also turns you into easy prey for those who dare to innovate, dare to take risks. This world waits for no one. If you just sit there and cling to the past, you'll only see the future slip through your fingers, leaving you in the dust. Remember, the safest path is sometimes the most dangerous path. Security in a changing world is an illusion. You've got to learn to let go of what no longer serves your growth, whether it's an idea, a relationship, or a habit. The stupid person lives in the past, constantly looking over their shoulder. The wise person builds the future, always looking ahead, always preparing for the next shift. This is one of the most dangerous things, being totally complacent with what you think you know. The stupid person thinks they've got it all figured out, or at least enough not to need to learn anything else. They stop growing convinced they've reached the peak of their understanding. They boast about past achievements, about knowledge they've picked up somewhere, without realizing that the world has changed and their knowledge is seriously outdated. It's intellectual arrogance, pure and simple. Machiavelli constantly stressed the importance of learning, of really understanding people and situations and adapting your tactics. The complacent person is burying themselves alive, becoming their own intellectual tomb. Have you seen people who constantly say, "I know," "I've got this," or "Don't even try to teach me"? They interrupt, they dismiss, they condescend. That's a clear sign of stupidity. They close their minds to new ideas, to different viewpoints, to the lessons life is trying desperately to teach them. They believe their cup is full, so nothing new can be poured in. I once worked with a manager who was always so proud of his 20 years of industry experience. He'd always brush off new suggestions from younger employees, refused any tech training, and constantly swore that the old way is still the best. He looked down on new trends, modern methods, because he thought he'd been through it all and seen every trick in the book. He dismissed the internet as a fad and social media marketing as child's play. By the time the company started losing serious market share and smaller, more agile competitors blew past them. He still didn't understand why. He kept thinking that he'd done things right. He had experience. He didn't realize that 20 years of outdated experience isn't worth 2 years of someone who's constantly learning and adapting. His arrogance had made him irrelevant. He became a liability, not an asset. Think about the armchair expert on social media. They've read a few articles, watched a couple of videos, and now they consider themselves an authority on complex global issues. They preach with absolute certainty, refuse to engage in real debate, and immediately block anyone who challenges their shallow understanding. Their confidence far outstrips their actual competence. This isn't just annoying, it's dangerous, as it spreads misinformation and stifles genuine discourse. Stupidity isn't a lack of knowledge, but a refusal to acquire knowledge. The stupid person locks themselves in a shell of shallow understanding of past successes and makes themselves obsolete in a world that's racing at warp speed. They are static in a dynamic environment, guaranteeing their own irrelevance. Remember, to know that you know nothing is the sign of true wisdom. Socrates understood this centuries before Machiavelli. The wise person is always humble, always curious, always learning from everyone, every situation, every failure. They understand that knowledge is an endless journey, a continuous process of discovery and refinement. The stupid person thinks it's a finish line they've already crossed. Never stop learning, never stop questioning, never stop seeking out discomfort in your understanding. And most importantly, never think you know enough. Because the moment you think you know enough, that's when you start becoming stupid. That's when you start dying intellectually and metaphorically. The last sign, but equally important, is how the stupid person makes decisions. They always let their emotions run the show instead of reason and strategy. In Machiavelli's world, emotion is a double-edged sword, and if you don't control it, it's gonna cut you, bleed you dry, and leave you vulnerable. Your feelings are a compass, not a steering wheel, especially when power is on the line. The stupid person is easily triggered by anger, fear, or arrogance. They make hasty, boneheaded decisions just to satisfy some momentary emotion, without thinking about the long-term fallout. They lash out when offended, retreat when fearful, and boast when feeling superior, all without a calculated thought for the consequences. Their reactions are predictable, making them easy targets for anyone with a modicum of strategic insight. Have you ever seen someone totally lose it yelling in a meeting? Just because of one unwelcome comment, they might feel a fleeting sense of satisfaction, of standing up for themselves, but in reality, they've just torpedoed their professional reputation and alienated potential allies. Or someone make a super risky business decision, not because it made logical sense, but just to prove themselves, or to get back at someone who slighted them, Emotional revenge rarely pays off. It usually just escalates the conflict and burns more bridges. I once had a business partner, a guy who was easily offended. He had a brilliant mind for numbers, but his emotional intelligence was zero. Whenever anyone offered criticism, even if it was constructive and delivered privately, he'd immediately dismiss everything as an attack, and even cut off relationships. He'd slam doors, send furious emails, and then wonder why people were avoiding him. He never took the time to consider whether the criticism was valid, or if it could actually help him improve his game. He just reacted with ego and anger, prioritizing his pride over his progress. The result, he isolated himself, lost good collaboration opportunities because people didn't want to deal with his volatile temper, and never figured out his own weaknesses. His decisions were always based on, "I like this," or "I hate that," rather than, "Is this actually good for me in the long run?" His company, once promising, eventually crumbled because key people left, and new partnerships were impossible. His brilliance was overshadowed by his emotional immaturity. Consider the person who constantly overspends due to emotional buying, seeking fleeting pleasure from material possessions despite mounting debt. Or the individual who makes crucial life decisions, like quitting a job, ending a relationship, or moving across the country, purely out of a sudden burst of anger or frustration, without any careful planning or foresight. These impulsive acts often lead to deeper problems. But the stupid person is too caught up in the immediate emotional release to see the precipice. Ahead, Machiavelli taught, the wise man relies not on luck, but on his own strength and wisdom. That strength includes the ability to control your emotions, view situations objectively, and make decisions based on cold calculation, not impulsiveness. He didn't advocate for being emotionless, but for mastering your emotions, using them as tools, not letting them be your master. Stupid person is the opposite. They act like an uncontrolled wildfire, burning everything in their path, including themselves. They become slaves to their emotions instead of mastering them. And in the battle for power, in the relentless competition of life, a slave will never win. Only the master of self can truly master their destiny. Learn to keep your cool, even when faced with the harshest criticism or the biggest temptations. Take a breath, take a step back, take time to think, analyze, and consider all the angles before you act. Don't let your emotions cloud your judgment, because when you do, you're not just making a mistake, you're handing power directly to those who know how to play the game better than you do. You see, stupidity isn't something you're born with. It's not a genetic defect or an unchangeable fate. It's a choice. A series of choices compounded over time that lead to a self-made prison. It's a choice not to face the truth. A choice to believe in appearances. A choice to dodge responsibility. A choice to fear change. A choice to be complacent. And a choice to let emotions call the shots. These choices might feel comfortable in the moment, but they lead to a lifetime of misery and powerlessness. Machiavelli didn't teach us to be evil. He taught us to be realists. He taught us to be survivors, to be strong, to be capable of protecting ourselves and hitting our goals in a world that's far from romantic. A world that rewards cunning and courage, not just good intentions. His lessons, though brutal, are a compass for survival. A manual for navigating the treacherous waters of human interaction and power dynamics. Look back at those 6 signs. Be brutally honest with yourself. Do you see them somewhere around you, in your circle, your workplace, the news, or worse? And this is the painful but necessary self-reflection. Do you see these signs in yourself? If so, this is the moment you've got to make a change. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Because every moment you delay, you're giving away more of your power, more of your potential. You've got 2 choices laid bare, no sugarcoating. One, keep living in that illusion, embracing weakness, and then becoming prey in this endless power game. You'll continue to be tossed around by circumstance, manipulated by others, and ultimately left behind wondering why life seems so unfair. This path leads to quiet desperation, resentment, and a life lived on someone else's terms. 2, face the truth. Embrace these harsh lessons and start building a stronger, wiser version of yourself. A version that doesn't fear the truth, isn't easily fooled by superficiality, dares to take responsibility for every outcome, embraces change as a constant, never stops learning and masters their emotions, using them as tools rather than letting them be masters. This path is harder. It's uncomfortable. It will challenge everything you think you know. But it leads to real power, to true freedom, and to the ability to master your own life, to write your own story on your own terms. Either path takes guts. The first one takes the guts to continue living a lie. The second one takes the guts to face the truth and fight for your own sovereignty. But only the second path is going to lead you to freedom, to real power, and to the ability to master your own life. The choice is yours. Start today. Don't let yourself become the stupid person in the story of your own life. Write your own damn ending. So after watching this video, what are your thoughts? Did any of these signs hit home for you? Or maybe remind you of someone you know? What's the most impactful lesson you're taking away from Machiavelli's brutal honesty? Drop a comment down below and let me know your feelings. Your insights and experiences add so much to this conversation here on Dark Psychology. If you found this video valuable, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more profound insights into power human nature and how to thrive in a world that doesn't pull its punches. See you in the next one.